Hello there, and welcome to this week's Did Shakespeare. My name is Cassidy Cash, that Shakespeare girl. Look, no flowers! You guys, I've moved my recording studio back to the guest room, which has this beautiful blue-gray wall behind me that I like so much. You can see down there in the corner are some paintings that I'm going to hang up. I'm not sure if they're going behind me or not. But for this week, we are diving into some more fun and games by looking at Elizabethan games. Specifically, we're asking the question, did Shakespeare play cards? It turns out that card games and board games, as well as sports, were very, very popular during the Elizabethan period. William Shakespeare would have most likely played card games. When you're at home in the evening and you need some entertainment, you only have a few options. There was no electricity and there was limited stuff to do. They didn't have iPads or Netflix to sit down and binge watch, which was probably why he wrote such incredible plays, come to think of it. But the reality is that they did play a lot of games. One game that Shakespeare played was called Noddy. Now, not naughty as in, oh, that's bad, don't do that. It's Noddy, N-O-D-D-Y is the name of the game. There were lots of card games played during William Shakespeare's lifetime. Noddy was simply one of them. I've picked this one because it was mentioned by name in Shakespeare's plays. He mentions it in Two Gentlemen of Verona. The character Proteus says, "That set together is Noddy." There are three other card game references I was able to find in the works of William Shakespeare. In King John, he says, "Have I not here the best cards for the game? To win is no easy match played for a crown." In Antony and Cleopatra, he says, "Eros has packed cards with Caesar and false played my glory." And in Titus Andronicus, there's a quote that says, "A sure card as ever won the set." So winning sets, gambling, and playing cards was a huge part of Elizabethan life when William Shakespeare was writing. It's very likely that he and his family played these card games. Games like this one were played for special occasions and just for fun around the house by families from all walks of life in Elizabethan society. Oxford English Dictionary says that the first historical recorded reference to this game was in 1589, which would be when William Shakespeare was 25 years old. The word naughty means simpleton or fool, and a lot of our modern words that we use when playing cards date back to these words that they used. In this game, when you had the jack, it was called the knave. And if you played the first card that was turned over was called the knave naughty. And that was the trump suit of the deck and was the first, whatever the suit of the first card you turn over is the trump suit of the deck. And then the jack of that suit was the knave naughty for the game. And you get an extra 2 points if you can make a set with that card. The Knave of Hearts was called the Roger because Roger was a colloquial term for a beggar that posed as a university student. We know that cards were popular in this time period because we have records from people like Henry VIII and Henry VII recording in their court records. For example, Henry VII's wife is actually recorded in official court documents as having a debt of cards. The cards in Elizabethan England were longer and skinnier than they are today, and they didn't have this design on the back. So I've got a deck of cards here. I'm going to show you how to play Noddy in just a minute, but the back of the cards didn't have this design. This actually didn't show up until the 1800s. In Shakespeare's time, when he was playing cards, the back would have been completely blank. They wouldn't have had a design on it at all. It would have just been plain. And the front of the card would not have had this number. It would have had the shapes that you see here, but it wouldn't have had the number. The number also didn't show up until the 1800s. They did play with a traditional 52 card deck, just like we do today. So if you would like to play this Elizabethan card game, just like William Shakespeare, here are the instructions. To get started, you need 2 to 4 players. If you're playing with 2 players, each person is their own team. If you play with 4 players, then you pair up and each of you has a turn, but you play your points count together. If you're from the southern United States and you've ever played Rook, you will understand exactly how this works. If you have ever played Bridge, you'll understand how this works. It's a partnered game. Everybody has a play, but pairs count together as a team. The object of the game is be the first team to 31 points. When you're playing in the game, the way you get points is a couple of different ways, but you can total up the cards themselves. So you'll be playing cards onto a playing board, and I'll tell you how that works in just a minute. But each of the cards of numbers, they count a value of whatever they show. So like here I've got a 5 and an 8. That would count. You add them up, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So this would be a value of 13. When you add them up, you only get points if you hit a value of 15, 25, or 31. So if the next card laid was a 2, the person who laid the 2 would have made 15, and they would get points for making a value of 15. To decide who goes first, you cut the cards, and that means to just lift it up. I draw an ace of hearts. You draw a 6 of clubs. So actually in this game, you would go first because the 6 of clubs is higher than the ace. In this game, the ace is low and the king is high, and it doesn't play around. So when you're making sets to count towards your points, you can do ace, 2, 3, but you can't do ace, king, queen. This game is a precursor to the modern game of cribbage, which means you can peg your points on a cribbage board. It was thought to have been played with a peg board to keep track of the score. When my kids and I played this game, we just used a piece of notebook paper, and that works just as well for tracking the points too. Although a cribbage board does make it fun, and it's very tactile. Use whichever one works for you and your family. You start by shuffling the cards and dealing 5 cards to each player. You will then select 2 cards from your hand to discard into what's called the crib. Some versions of this game play with each person getting dealt 3 cards to start with, and they don't use a crib. This is considered optional. I found several accounts of this game which claimed to be historical accounts. Noddy being played with 3 cards dealt and no crib seems to be the most likely historical version that would date to Shakespeare's lifetime. Playing with 5 cards and discarding 2 into a crib that counts for points at the end of the game, that seems to be a later version of it. They are both called Noddy. One of them is called 5-card Noddy. The other one is just called Noddy. So make your own best guess. If you want to play with 3 cards, just omit the discarding into the crib. When you are immediately dealt your cards, you get your hand and you look at it. And you calculate out how many points you have in your hand. And you announce the total of points immediately on play. So an ace is 1, 2 through 10 counts as their face value. The king and queen count for 10 points, and you just add up the value of what's in your hand. And if you make a 15, a 25, or a 31, you get points for that. Other ways to make points would be to make a group of 3, a pair royal, which is 3 of a kind, or a double pair, which is 4 of a kind. The 4 of a kind has to be made in succession. If you're playing with 4 people, if everybody lays a 4 of hearts, the last person to lay down the last 4 of 4 in a row gets the points for 4 in succession. There were disagreements among various versions of this game as to how many points you would get for totaling 15, 25, or 31 in your cards that you're holding. So in our version today, we're going to say for 15 and 25, you get 2 points. If you get 31 on the dot exactly, then you get 3 points. So here's how the order of play goes. The dealing hand is the one that gets to count the crib towards their points at the end. And since that is an advantage, the non-dealing team gets a bonus 3 points at the start of play. Now, the non-dealing hand is going to cut the cards but not look at it. The dealer then flips the top card and lays it there, and then you stack them again. This card, and I really can't believe I just drew the ace of hearts again, but this card, this is now the trump suit. And if you score with the knave Noddy, the jack of hearts in this game, you will get an extra 2 points. So now this card counts for everybody, and you then take turns playing, and play goes around in a circle with everybody choosing a card to lay down. You're going to lay down a card that you can make a point with. So if you can make another ace and then get a pair, whoever lays down the card that makes the points gets the points. And you can make point combinations multiple times, and they don't always have to be in order. So if you wanted to do a run of 2, 3, 4, you could get points for that, even if there are cards in between the 2 and the 3. So if somebody had laid down a 2, Jack, 3, Queen, and then the next person lays down a 4, they get points for a 3-card run of 2, 3, 4, even though those numbers aren't sitting right next to each other on the play. I have put together a principle that explains the rules and all of the points and order of play. And if you sign up for that Shakespeare Girl newsletter, you can have the principle for free. It works as a nice little guide to have in a printed form if you're sitting at a table trying to play this with your kids. You can also use some of the Learn More links I have in the show notes of today's episode to find some free ones. But if you would like the principle, the PDF to help you, you are welcome to use my copy, which is available to all of my newsletter subscribers because I give you guys the best stuff. That's it for this week here at Did Shakespeare. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new about the Bard. Don't forget to jump over to castycash.com and see all of the show notes for today's video. I've included Learn More links, which helps you explore this topic of Elizabethan games, card games, board games, and sports played during the life of William Shakespeare, all over at castycash.com. The link to the show notes is posted below this video. Make sure you go and check that out. Thank you for visiting, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.